I'm Debbie Brown, President of the Colorado Business Roundtable, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the 2021 State of the State event with Governor Jared Polis. I want to thank Civico for being event partners as they have in years past, and on behalf of our Board of Directors and other partners, welcome. I want to thank all the panelists who have also joined today, and of course, Governor Jared Polis for participating. And we've still got folks joining the webinar, so welcome to joining us at this virtual event, and we wish that we were in person like we were last year. Colorado Business Roundtable is an affiliate of the National Business Roundtable based in Washington, D.C., that represents some of America's largest employers. We convene and collaborate on public policy issues that not only affect our partners here in Colorado, but also that affect them nationally and internationally. And our partners have a big footprint: 79,000 Colorado employees, 1.7 million global employees, 12.1 billion in Colorado revenue, and 864 billion in global revenue. And we unapologetically tell the story that business is good. So first, a word of gratitude to our Colorado healthcare community. Like the rest of the world, Colorado has faced challenges in 2020 and the COVID-19 nightmare. The good news for us is Colorado has always been at the center of innovation, and we've stayed true to that history by demonstrating tenacity, compassion, and a pioneering spirit. Our healthcare professionals have been the heart and soul of the pandemic: nurses, doctors, and caregivers who have been challenged to provide care to Coloradans within a relentlessly changing environment. And Colorado's healthcare community really stepped up to understand the new virus and provide the care that patients needed. They found new ways to collaborate, leverage technology, and provide care and support through the rapid advancement of treatment and cures. And you'll hear shortly from pharma. The biopharmaceutical industry deserves our admiration for their efforts in vaccine research, development, and production. We recently convened a roundtable for a deep look into our healthcare system through the lens of the COVID-19 pandemic. Panelists shared about lessons learned, new technologies adopted, and all of those opportunities will prove valuable to the future of healthcare. So these healthcare panelists also reminded us at this event that the pandemic is not over, but thanks to their contributions and their innovations, we are beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So thank you. A parallel hardship has also affected Coloradans, an economic catastrophe that runs parallel to what we've seen on the healthcare front. And it's hit some communities and industries harder than others. In response, our business community has had to adapt, transform, and seize opportunities to rebuild and shape Colorado's economic future for the long term. In partnership with Common Sense Institute, we were able to develop data-backed strategies for success and forward momentum. Together, we marshaled an influential group of Coloradans, leaders in academia, business, community, and government, and folks from the private sector, from energy, technology, aerospace, finance, etc., as well as thought leaders on economic development and the future of work. The result was a Road to Recovery initiative that brought together recommendations for how do we rebuild Colorado's economic future. Because we also know economic success should be reflective of the economic status of all Coloradans, and no one should be left out. For this reason, we've also included in our Road to Recovery recommendations specific data tracks of key quality of life indicators and recommendations that fall into three distinct pillars: prioritizing a competitiveness agenda, reimagining tomorrow's workforce, and investing in a future-forward infrastructure. You can read more about that on our website at cobrt.com, as well as watch the video I had mentioned with the healthcare professionals talking about their new lens of innovation through COVID-19. And we look forward to collaborating with many of you this summer. We'll be putting together an Ideas Summit to reflect on our Road to Recovery recommendations and look forward to see how we can all collaborate again in the future. So before we welcome our panel and Governor Polis, we also were honored to showcase the first video in our Faces of Business campaign. The Faces of Business comprises 20 real-life Coloradans, owners, employers, and employees. And the campaign provides a window into their challenges, their inspiration, their excitement, and their energy, as well as the rewards and reflections of Colorado's spirit of entrepreneurism. The folks highlighted in our video come from every walk of life. They're part of our communities, and they are our neighbors and our friends. And through them, we can remind ourselves that we're all interconnected. Whether we're involved in big business or small business, it's actually just about people. So you'll meet Chelsea, owner of the Sweetwater Boutique in downtown Evergreen. And you'll meet Jose and Tamil, owners of Raíces Brewing Company in Denver. And you'll meet Michelle Smith. Michelle and her husband Mark own an organic farm, Country Fresh Farms, just east of Elbert County. And you'll also meet in the video Megan Baumgars, a self-advocate with Down syndrome who's an artist and a rising entrepreneur. And the list goes on. These businesses give light to the fact that business is a force for good. So with that, I'm going to ask Corey to show our first video for Faces of Business.
To me, business means independence,
Honesty.
Future.
Giving back.
Connection.
Businesses aren't buildings.
Businesses are people.
We come from every walk of life.
We are part of your community.
we are your neighbors.
We are your friends.
Everybody has a path. Everybody has a journey.
My parents were Chinese immigrants.
I came here to United States like 7, 8 years ago with passion and hope for the future, and I was right.
I grew up in the projects in Louisiana. In my eyes, the heroes of our community was the barbershop owner, the mechanic, the store shop owner.
Our mission is to help individuals achieve economic freedom through the dignity of work.
We're one of the largest integrated employers of people with intellectual disabilities in the state.
Having that self-esteem will make you feel so good about what it matters to you and what you have accomplished for.
I'm suddenly a business owner and a single mom, and I managed to do it all.
So far, it's been a wonderful enterprise.
It's also so rewarding to be able to provide work to amazing and talented people.
Do definitely seek out and help out other veteran-owned businesses and get as many veterans I can in the door. It's amazing. It's an amazing feeling.
Just know that if you can support one, then maybe that owner goes to coffee from next door, the coffee buys a sandwich from next door, who buys a shirt from the boutique.
It's about the person that comes to get tattooed by me, which is an honor.
It's inspirational. It makes you want to do a job perfect and go above and beyond their expectations every time.
It's really satisfying when you know you've put in a hard day's work and you can see your accomplishments.
Business can be challenging.
Especially now.
Most never see the sleepless nights.
And the late hours.
Oh, but it's worth it.
Because when business succeeds,
we all succeed.
And Colorado succeeds.
Business is a force for good.
For all of us.
For all of us. For all of us.
Great, thank you so much. As you can see, we've put together some heartwarming stories of Coloradans in big businesses, small businesses, to show how we're all interconnected. And that's just a preview of what's to come, and we look forward to telling their story. And perhaps you're listening to this webinar today and you have a story that you think we should also tell. We'd love to hear about that and work together to talk about how business is a force for good. So thank you for being a part of our first showing of this exciting campaign. So now I'd like to also thank our sponsors for today's event before I introduce the folks from Civico. So I want to thank Deloitte, AT&T. Corey, if you could put up the slide, that would be great. Deloitte, AT&T, Apple, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, G5 Financial Group, Robinson, Waters and Adorcio, Cap Logistics, CSU Global, Colorado Para, Monfort Companies, ARC Thrift Stores, University of Colorado, and a special thanks to Pharma for also sponsoring the event. So thank you for letting me take a time out to thank some of the folks who help with our work. So next I'd like to introduce our event co-coordinators with Civico, who we've partnered with for several years. Jennifer Landers is the Executive Director of Civico. Civico educates, inspires, and connects the next generation of community leaders through elite cross-sector leadership programs, enriching experiences, executive coaching, and mentorship. And I've asked Jennifer to make a few remarks. Jennifer?
Thank you, Debbie. I really appreciate the introduction, and I'm inspired by the launch of your Faces of Business initiative. Civico is honored to co-host this event with Colorado Business Roundtable. And Debbie, thank you and your team for your leadership in gathering our panelists and creating this opportunity for leaders across Colorado to have this important conversation. And thank you for those attending today with the intention to gain an understanding of how we can individually and collectively contribute to progress in Colorado. The spirit of collaboration and the lens on civic responsibility is really at the heart of the Civico mission. Civico is a nonprofit that inspires, develops, and activates community-centered leaders. And bringing together individuals from private, public, and nonprofit organizations, Civico is helping amplify Colorado's leadership capacity and providing expanded pathways to community impact. Through its strategic partnerships with Colorado Young Leaders, Civico also empowers youth to lead through service and community engagement. And by emboldening our youth and activating our leaders, which is the activation is what both of our organizations do, we can ignite Colorado's potential and play a role in positioning our state for bold and transformational change as we address the challenges that Debbie, you spoke of earlier, and the opportunities arising from current events. One of our core programs is the Governor's Fellowship, which provides opportunities for individuals to become better, more informed community leaders while building valuable relationships with those who currently shape our state. And we're currently developing our next cohort of fellows, and I've asked our program director, Kate Deeney, the director of the Civico Leadership Academy, to share a little bit of this program with you in hopes that those of you on the call today may be inspired to learn more. So I'm actually going to pass it over to Kate.
Great, thank you, Jen. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to share a little bit more with you about the Colorado Governor's Fellowship Program. As Jen mentioned, we are in the midst of doing recruitment and outreach for this program, now in its 6th programmatic year. And I wanted to just share a little bit about it with you. The Colorado Governor's Fellowship Program is a bipartisan leadership program in the state of Colorado. It's endorsed by Governors Polis, Hickenlooper, Ritter, and Owens. The fellowship program is delivered in partnership with the University of Colorado Denver School of Public Affairs, the Governor's Office, and with generous support from Boettcher Foundation and El Pomar Foundation. Over the course of this 9-month program, the Colorado Governor's Fellowship Program aims to inspire fellows' belief in what government can be, prepare fellows for the tremendous opportunities and challenges unique to the public sector that they'll face, and help fellows find the right time and approach to serve in the public sector. And this looks different for many individuals. There's many pathways of service in the public sector, but we believe wholeheartedly in this spirit of bipartisanship and bringing nonprofit and private sector individuals closely into the public sector with this program. We're looking for individuals who are mid to high level career executives, both in the private and nonprofit sector across the state of Colorado, who are passionate about applying their skill set and ability to engage in the public sector. They can demonstrate professional credibility and achievement, be actively engaged in their community, embody a commitment to service and the greater good, and uphold a strong standing in the business and civic community across the state of Colorado. As I mentioned, fellows have gone on to do wonderful things for our state, from running in elected office positions, serving in cabinet roles in state government, serving on local school boards, in city councils across Colorado, and on the many boards and commissions that our state has. Those are just a few of the ways that alumni fellows have served from this program. As Jen mentioned, our program is doing recruitment right now. So if you know of somebody who is interested, or you yourself are interested, we would love to hear from you. Our application deadline is March 12th. It's coming up. You can find information on our website, and I'm sure Debbie will pass that along to you all after our session today. So thank you so much. I'm going to pass it back to you, Debbie.
Great. Thank you, Kate, and thank you, Jen, for the valuable work that you do with Civico, and definitely happy to have you as event partners again and how we move Colorado forward. So thank you. Now I'm excited to introduce Dana Malik, who is the Deputy VP State Advocacy for Pharma's Rocky Mountain region. Perhaps like many of you, when my parents were able to receive the vaccine, thankfully here in Colorado just recently, as two 80-year-olds, very, very grateful to the pharmaceutical industry and how in the speed and professionalism that they've had in delivering these vaccines for us. Pharma represents the country's leading innovative biopharmaceutical research companies, which are devoted to discovering and developing medicines that enable patients to live longer, healthy, and more productive lives. And it's a great time to hear from Pharma. So Dana, please join us with remarks.
Thank you so much, Debbie. And I want to thank the Colorado Business Roundtable and Civico for the opportunity to be with you all today. Like many of you, I'm really looking forward to today's discussion, particularly hearing from Governor Polis about his vision for supporting Colorado's businesses and industries as we all work to find our way forward from what can only be called one of the most challenging and heartbreaking years in recent memory for businesses and for us all as human beings. As I look back on the last 12 months, my thoughts go almost immediately to those who stood on the front lines of this pandemic and took care of all of us. I think about a nurse I met just this past November when I had to make a non-COVID related trip to the urgent care. She was routinely taking my blood pressure, and I asked how she was doing, and her eyes welled up with tears. She said she was exhausted, and that a possible new wave of COVID related suffering felt like too much for her to bear. I think about the cashier whose line I often find myself in at the Safeway near my house. I was checking out during one evening in late April last year, and he asked me how I was doing. And I said, okay, and asked him the same question. And he took a deep breath and said, I am terrified to come to work because I have a health condition that puts me at higher risk with COVID. But without this job, I don't know how I pay my bills or take care of my fiance. And that terrifies me more than COVID does. Like all of you, I've had countless exchanges with those on the front lines of this pandemic who every day made the choice to put themselves in harm's way or had no choice but to do so they could care for the people that they love. I will remember the devastation in their voices for the rest of my life. Those on the front lines of this pandemic needed a light at the end of the tunnel. They needed something, anything to turn the tide. And I couldn't be prouder to represent an industry that sprung to action and contributed a part of the answer to that call for help in the best way we know how, through science and innovation. Over the past several decades, pharma members have invested billions of dollars in building manufacturing infrastructure and developing critical technological advances, which have allowed us to accelerate vaccine development, identify and rapidly advance promising treatment options, and quickly manufacture new vaccines and treatments for patients. Companies assume the risk of manufacturing capabilities in parallel with clinical development, and this was well before COVID-19 vaccines received regulatory authorization or approval. And they did this to speed the delivery of approved and authorized products for patients. Strategic public-private partnerships help support collaboration among governments, scientific institutions, and biopharmaceutical companies to stimulate progress in research and science, to develop effective vaccines and treatment options, such as those developed to fight and immunize against COVID-19. In development of the vaccines for COVID-19 specifically, companies were completing many of the vaccine development steps simultaneously, preparing phase 2 during phase 1, preparing manufacturing during phase 3. This vaccine development pathway provides a proven foundation for the development of safe vaccines. We've also been able to build on past innovations to make progress more quickly. The 2002-2003 SARS coronavirus gene took months to sequence. But due to advances in the understanding of coronaviruses like SARS and MERS, the COVID-19 gene was sequenced in under 2 weeks. A new type of vaccine, which we're all now very familiar with, mRNA, has also evolved from past interventions. So instead of injecting a weak form of a virus, you provide the genetic instructions directly. And this type of vaccine is much easier to manufacture, which has saved us months. AI has come a long way. Now AI can be used in vaccine development to help sort, analyze, and isolate the best potential vaccines. Work that would take months can be done in weeks or days. Normally, you have to harvest a virus from sick people in order to test vaccines, but now they can be created synthetically, allowing for much more laboratory testing much more quickly. Companies have invested billions of dollars in manufacturing infrastructure that allowed them to accelerate vaccine and treatment development and manufacture them rapidly and to scale. By incentivizing these forms of innovation, including multiple treatments in a therapeutic class, our current system promotes competition. At the same time, it encourages advances in treatment. Companies compete to be the first to market in a pharmacologic class, and then companies compete to demonstrate improved clinical effects within a class. The result is a market where products compete on both price and clinical effects to the benefit of patients as well as payers. This is the system that brought multiple vaccines for a global pandemic across the finish line in under 12 months. As of this morning, 797,634 Coloradans have received one shot of the COVID-19 vaccine, and 379,144 have been fully immunized with both doses. Those currently eligible to receive the vaccine in Colorado include our healthcare providers, our first responders, our state seniors, our educators, and those who suffer from high-risk conditions. I'm hopeful that my urgent care nurse and the cashier at my Safeway are among those who received the vaccine in the initial phases of Colorado's immunization campaign against this deadly virus. I am hopeful that they now are among the hundreds of thousands of Coloradans no longer afraid to go to work and no longer having to risk their own life to save that of another. I want to thank Governor Polis and his administration, members of the legislature, and the countless others in Colorado's public and private sectors for your unwavering commitment to protect the people of Colorado from this virus. On behalf of pharma and our member companies, we stand with you, and we will continue to do all we can through science and innovation to help to get us all through this. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Dana. And I think hopefully you're getting words of gratitude from all the folks that you run into now and can help pass that along to folks who work in the pharmaceutical industry. So thank you. And again, I'm fortunate that my two parents, who are both seniors in Colorado, were able to get the vaccine, and just, it enables us to have a big sigh of relief knowing that that's being fully deployed. So appreciate that. Next, I'd like to introduce Dave Eddy with the Boeing Corporation. Dave has been with Boeing for 30 years and is the current site director for Aurora and Colorado Springs locations. Dave also serves as the chairman of the board for Colorado Business Roundtable. So welcome, Dave.
Thank you, Debbie. On behalf of the board of directors for Cobart, I want to welcome everybody to this robust discussion that will kick off just shortly in a few minutes with the governor. Thank you to Debbie, thank you to Jen, Dana, thank you for your comments also. We're looking forward to a great discussion. We put together an excellent panel that I think represents Colorado business very well. And we're hoping that the governor will engage with a conversation that will provide all the attendees some information and some insights into what lies ahead for the future of Colorado in the business area. I know from an aerospace perspective, There's been some rather significant events just as recently as last week. For those of you that followed the NASA mission, Perseverance, I want to congratulate my fellow aerospace companies, United Launch Alliance, Lockheed Martin, and Sierra Nevada. That was quite a set of pictures that came back from the Mars surface. So looking forward to additional information and insights as that mission continues. From a Boeing perspective, we do have some additional highlights coming forward for the rest of the year with the SLS program and the Starliner. All of that goes to the larger mission of returning to Mars in human spaceflight at some point. And the final piece I'd like to share with you via some information that was shared from Vicki Lee and the Denver Metro, where some of the statistics that has to do with the aerospace industry here in the state of Colorado. Colorado is the #1 aerospace state in the nation. We're second only to California, but they have way too many people. So we'll take the #1 standing per capita. The average starting salary for an aerospace worker in the state of Colorado is $62,000. The median salary is $143,000. We currently have 33,000 direct aerospace workers. And when you combine that with the indirects, subcontractors, we have over 235,000 employees that participate in the aerospace industry in the state of Colorado. The impact to the state's economy is $4.3 billion. So again, thank you to all those who have dialed in. Look forward to a great discussion, and we look forward to welcoming the governor here very shortly. Back to you, Debbie.
Great. Thank you so much, Dave, and thank you for representing our board for Colorado Business Roundtable, and glad to have you on. We are expecting the governor in just a couple minutes and want to go ahead and have the panelists now turn on their cameras, and everyone who had a role in the first half of our program to go ahead and turn off your cameras, and we'll transition to the next piece of our agenda. So I'm going to go ahead and do introductions of our private sector executives that are joining us today. And like I said, the governor will pop on. For these executives who are joining the panel, we have already reviewed the State of the State address that the governor gave last week officially to the state legislature. And these are some follow-up questions that we have that are coming from different industry sectors to talk about some of the economic and business priorities that were outlined by Governor Jared Polis. So to give you a sense of who's joining us today, let's see.
Hello.
Oh, there, Governor, I didn't see you log on. Excuse me. Great to see you, Debbie Brown, Colorado Business Roundtable. We're joined now by Governor Jared Polis. Governor, I was just about to introduce the executives that'll be asking some questions. If you're okay with that, I'll do the introductions. Sure. And then we'll get rolling. Okay, cool. Thank you. So first we have Peter Banco, is the president and CEO of Centura Health that connects individuals, families, and neighborhoods across Colorado and western Kansas with more than 6,000 physicians and 21,000 mission-oriented caregivers. Centura Health promotes a workplace and healthcare environment that values the uniqueness of individuals. So welcome, Peter. We've got Maria Demery, Vice President and General Manager, Special Programs with Lockheed Martin Space. Maria is where her portfolio is focused on delivering high-performance systems and innovative concepts for critical national security space applications. Welcome, Maria. We've got Danny Moore, President of De Novo Solutions. Danny Moore, through De Novo, strives to be the leader among small businesses in the intelligence community and provides personnel with talent and skills equal to the larger companies. So welcome, Danny. Roberta Robinette is the president of AT&T Colorado. AT&T believes that communications, technology, and entertainment can inspire people to imagine innovative, transformative solutions, share ideas, and generate positive impacts. So welcome, Roberta. And we've got, we've got Monica Skoke, the managing director and region manager with JP Morgan Chase Commercial Banking in the Intermountain, which is Colorado, Utah, Arizona, Nevada, Idaho, Wyoming, and Montana. And Monica leads a team of commercial bankers delivering the firm's global capabilities to local business clients, including treasury and payment services, credit and financing, international banking, and investment banking. And finally, delivering some additional remarks and collaboration from his recent State of the State address is Governor Jared Polis, who is an entrepreneur, an education leader, and a public servant, besides being Colorado's governor. And after launching several successful companies, Governor Polis committed himself to making sure all Coloradans had the opportunity to pursue their dreams through founding schools for at-risk students and new immigrants, and also starting nonprofits to help veterans. So welcome, Governor.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you. So at this time, I'd love to see if Governor Polis has a couple remarks for us, and then we'll just go ahead and start the Q&A.
Yeah, I'll be brief. You heard my more extended version, or at least a summary of it before the state legislature in a very unique session. And I want to thank Debbie for that introduction. I want to thank our questioners, in particular Peter Banco and Centura, for stepping up in so many ways during this crisis. Not only, of course, for the two peaks we've had with regard to COVID patients, but also on the vaccination program. Centura has been an exemplary partner, really working hard to vaccinate residents over 65 and others, both their own customers and those who signed up on their website. So I want to thank them for that work. Thank you, Peter. Look, as the vaccine makes its way into arms, it's also important to recognize that the pandemic isn't over yet. And while protecting people over 70 can lead to reductions in fatality rate by 75% and reduction in hospitalizations by just over 40%, that's still a lot of hospitalizations and a lot of deaths if we aren't careful during these final few months of the pandemic before enough people of all ages are protected to end the pandemic. And that's why wearing masks, avoiding social gatherings, keeping a distance are so important now more than ever. We have a unique one-time opportunity with the state legislature to make a strategic one-time investment in stimulus of $1 billion or so that'll help jumpstart our economy. These are unused fund carry forwards. There's a long technical explanation for why we have them, but we do have from both the JBCs and our budget reckonings $1 billion plus to be able to use one time, right, in something that will get the economy going, create jobs, create a lasting legacy of benefit for Coloradans, easier for Coloradans to travel, investment in infrastructure, roads, reducing traffic, investment in rural communities with broadband, protecting our beautiful wild spaces, maintaining our public lands, really looking for shovel-ready projects and also job upskilling and training programs for resources that can be deployed ideally in 12 months, sort of in the most 12 to 18 months, to help get Coloradans back to work and build a lasting legacy of improvement. Because for far too long, as you know, Colorado has been tolerating the huge amount of lost productivity from traffic and underinvestment in transportation. And we've seen growth, we've seen economic success over the last decade. Those are great things, but that only increases the backlog of what we need to keep up with transportation. Repairs, modernization, reducing traffic, new technologies, making new technologies more viable, multimodal transportation. So to save people money and support the recovery, we are look forward to working with the legislature to modernize how we fund transportation, hopefully with some savings for consumers up front, either reducing the gas tax or reducing vehicle registration fees. Vehicle registration fees are probably better because it's guaranteed to reach people what they pay. If you reduce the gas tax, it may or may not reach the consumer. But either way, providing upfront savings for consumers. I'm excited to hear so much interest in building kind of what that funding looks like for our roads for the next decade or two. It's simple, kind of what the issue is. It's a good one to have. Vehicles are more fuel efficient, and now we have electric vehicles. So the gas tax essentially paid for our roads, and because people are getting more miles per gallon and they're driving EVs that don't pay in at all, we simply have a deteriorating revenue source for our roads. And while there's good one-time investment this year, it's a pretty bleak 5 or 10 year picture if we don't fix it now. And so let's fix it now. And by the way, it's a lot harder to fix in 5 or 10 years. It could mean things like if they wait 10 years and don't do it, they're going to have tens of billions of dollars in infrastructure deficit and all that lost productivity that we accumulated along the way, which equates to about $600 per person per year in extra wear and tear on your car and depreciation because of traffic. So it's a very real cost that people have that we hope we can relieve. To help our small businesses recover, we are proposing eliminating the business personal property tax for tens of thousands of small businesses, reducing paperwork, saving them money, making sure that seniors' Social Security income isn't taxed. Right now, a chunk of seniors have to pay it. They kind of fall in a donut hole and they have to pay state income tax. They shouldn't. They should be able to spend that money in local stores and restaurants to help get our economy going. So it takes all of us to build back our economy stronger. And this has been a tough year for all of us, whether it's economically, whether it's socially, not being able to be with friends and family, whether it's your own health or the health of a loved one. And that's why we need to take this opportunity to build back even stronger than before. And these stimulus proposals aren't just the right thing to do for us, they're the right thing to do for future generations to make Colorado an even better place for businesses, for people to build their lives, raise their families, all in our state. Thank you, and I'm happy to turn it back over to Debbie for questions and answers.
Great. Thank you, Governor. And we also appreciate the collaboration that we have with you and your team as well, and our ability to talk with you today about some of those economic priorities. So I'd like to ask Peter Banco to kick us off. Peter, you have a question from your role with Centura.
Yeah, thank you, Debbie. Governor, our behavioral health system in the state was fragile at best, as well as other healthcare components of the healthcare system. And behavioral health issues have only been exacerbated during the pandemic. So since May 2020, more than 1 in 10 Americans have reported symptoms of anxiety and or depressive disorder. And that statistic used to be 1 in 10. And I'm most concerned about our health caregivers and other essential healthcare workers and their mental and emotional health. How can we better come together to support the overall well-being of our communities as the pandemic continues and then post-pandemic?
Well, I think there's, this has been, as we talked about, a difficult year economically, a difficult year for people who suffered health, but also just a difficult year from a mental health perspective. And the isolation, the challenges in seeking mental health treatment. Even before the pandemic, we knew that action was needed to really make our behavioral health system more efficient and consumer focused. And of course, since the pandemic started, that's become even more urgent. Last year, our behavioral health task force that I convened released the Blueprint for Reform, which is a comprehensive plan to really try to make behavioral health consumer oriented, rather than when somebody is least able, forcing them to navigate complex bureaucracies to get help. The Blueprint is moving us towards, and I understand the legislators are working on a bipartisan bill, to really centralize access to care, so consumers have a one-stop shop to access their behavioral health needs rather than 30-some programs across different agencies that they might not find. Connecting patients directly to providers to help them navigate the system. Bringing awareness to the resources that exist that most people don't know what resources are there when they need them. And empowering local communities to really design and optimize communities, design systems of care that work for them. So we're looking forward to working with the legislature to pass and sign that bill, including streamlining the Behavioral Health Administration, kind of bringing it under a single state entity to avoid duplication and replication across state agencies. And that's just the first step. We know that we can do better as a state. We look forward to working with the stakeholders to do it.
Great. Peter, do you have a follow-up question as well?
I do, and thank you for your kind words earlier, Governor, about Centura's response. I'm so proud of our 21,000 people. It's been a humbling and yet transformational time for leadership. And our response in Colorado, I think, has been unique in terms of it's created a collaborative, all hands on deck approach to pandemic response and has fostered new and enhanced existing relationships between the public and private sector. So from your perspective, what worked well in our unique response in Colorado? And then how can we take these learnings to further your priorities and leverage the relationships that were formed to expand access to care and improve healthcare affordability?
Well, I think first in the minds of every Coloradan, it really put health first and foremost, just something that no one should ever take for granted. And this is a strange disease, and it can afflict a perfectly healthy 42-year-old, and they could be, on intubation for weeks. Others don't even get sick. We know that for people over 70, there's a death rate that's much, much, much higher, but it's just an equal opportunity pathogen, which has been tried. The partnership that we formed with the providers, including Centura, has really just been invaluable during all phases. I mean, the close touch we were in with personal protective equipment early on, and medical surge, and working with them and others. It's really been, I think, important learning about, of course, we can never take our health for granted when, we needed to make sure that we didn't exceed our capacity during our COVID surges, not just for COVID patients. We wanted to make sure that our hospitals were never in a place where they couldn't administer the very best quality care for people with heart attacks and strokes or appendicitis or pneumonia or any other condition that needed hospitalization. Other states failed in that regard, and we, by and large, succeeded, where we never exceeded our hospital capacity. That was always our North Star. And it's really important to recognize that we have that hospital capacity in our state and that we provide the very best quality of care and, of course, the affordability piece at the very best price for small, medium, and large businesses, as well as individuals who buy their own insurance.
Great, thank you. Now I want to bring in Maria Demery with Lockheed Martin. And on a related note, Governor, you might know that one of your items in the budget request to address Colorado's increasing fire challenges, wildlife fire challenges, is the Firehawk helicopter, which is manufactured by Lockheed Martin. So that might be an interesting side note. But Maria, what questions do you have for Governor Polis?
Well, thank you.
We wish it was made in Colorado. I know Lockheed has a big presence here, but maybe you can bring that helicopter manufacturing unit to Colorado. We'll order another one or two, okay?
Sounds like a good side deal.
Well, thank you very much. And welcome, Governor Polis. As Debbie said, I'm Maria Demery. I'm the Vice President and General Manager of Special Programs at Lockheed Martin Space. And I appreciate this opportunity to be able to talk with you this morning. As you know, Colorado is home to the largest part of our Lockheed Martin Space workforce. We have over 11,000 people at 45 facilities throughout the state. And Lockheed Martin Space provides specialized technical systems, satellites, and products and services to our customers that really impact everyday life, including Orion and Artemis that will bring the first woman and the next man to the moon since 1972. So I have a question for you. Dave Eddy mentioned earlier that Colorado is the #1 aerospace state in the nation. And thanks to your efforts, Governor Polis, the aerospace industry is continuing to thrive in Colorado. How does the state plan to stay competitive with other states that are trying to grow their aerospace industry as well?
Thank you. As you indicated, Maria, we are the epicenter of the National Security Space Mission as well as commercial space opportunities. We have a tremendous, robust aerospace ecosystem, from early stage startups to mature companies like Lockheed and others. We have the second largest aerospace economy in the country, but the highest density of private sector space employees given our population. And it's an exciting opportunity. We have great programs at our universities. We have an ecosystem that really makes us unlike any other state. As I like to always say, we're actually a little bit closer to space than some of those other flat areas near the ocean. So that proximity gives us a little bit of special expertise and opportunity as well. We have 63% of Colorado aerospace companies have 10 or fewer employees. That's really unique that we have a whole value chain there of suppliers, contractors, subcontractors, R&D, that some of them had careers with others. Some of them came right out of school. We have the Air Force Academy. Really so much that we have, a unique convergence of aerospace, high-tech industries, cybersecurity, IT, clean energy, great alignment with our institutions of higher education, some of the best aerospace and engineering programs in the country. And the aerospace industry is really central to helping our economy build back stronger. Both the commercial side, military, space, all of those are really critical. And we're looking forward to making Colorado an even better place for aerospace companies to do business.
Great, thank you. Maria, there's time for one more question on your end if you've got one more.
I do. Dana, who was just from Pharma on a little while ago, was telling some stories about the pandemic and the use of AI and how that was helpful in innovating solutions here. And we're also seeing that artificial intelligence and software development and cybersecurity are top areas that we have an increased need and a demand for talent in these. So how can we energize and better prepare students for careers in these fields?
Yeah, and by the way, Joe Rice pointed out that the final manufacturing of the Firehawk is done in Colorado. So while the Black Hawk's not made here, it's finished up by the United Rotorcraft here, which has about 300 jobs. So we're glad to hear that last piece of work, the Firehawk, is done here in Colorado. It's really about the pipeline of kind of talent going into aerospace. And we as a state are working hard on doing a better job accessing those who have great potential to be leaders in the aerospace industry from all different backgrounds, no matter where they live, right? So how do we make sure that students that grow up in rural Colorado, students that grow up in low-income urban communities, people of color, have the opportunity in that career pathway, really starting in middle school. Because sometimes by the time they're in high school, the courses they take are already determined, are they going to college or not. Starting in middle school, getting them onto college campuses, through high school, doing dual and concurrent enrollment programs. How can we get them on that trajectory for success wherever that talent lies? And that's really where a lot of our passion is around really aligning. It's not just aerospace, it's other sectors too, but certainly aerospace is one of those sectors that we want to help identify, recruit, retain, and train the very best talent in the world.
Very good. Thank you.
Perfect.
I also want to say just thank you for your leadership, not only during COVID, but also through those wildfires, which I know is the reason that the Firehawk helicopter is so important for us as a state, to be able to just have that initial attack on fires. And thanks to Joe Rice for the follow-up on that as well. Appreciate that. So thank you.
Perfect. And now that we know the Firehawk is built in Colorado, we can see more orders coming in, I suspect. Right?
There you go. Bring the Blackhawk assembly here, and then we'll talk.
Okay. I'll see what I can do.
Sounds good. Thank you. And next I want to bring in Danny Moore for a couple questions. Danny also serves on the board for Colorado Business Roundtable. So welcome, Danny.
Yes. Governor, thank you for this opportunity. I'm Danny Moore. I'm the owner of De Novo Solutions, and De Novo Solutions is a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business operating here in Aurora, Colorado. We specialize in signal analysis, engineering design, and development of hardware and software systems for the aerospace and defense industry. My question is around the unbelievable campaign that we put together to convince Space Command to come here. Lieutenant Governor Primavera did an outstanding job of rallying all of the ecosystem in order to put forth what I thought was a winning proposal. Can you talk to the impact of not getting Space Command here?
Well, first of all, as you know, we're working with the Secretary of Defense to pause actions related to moving U.S. Space Command until a review of the basing action is complete. We also welcome Friday's announcement that the Department of Defense Office of Inspector General is evaluating the basing action. We know that we're a lot more than just Space Command. It was certainly part of our ecosystem, but beyond that, we have a thriving future. In addition to being the very best home for Space Command and making sure that any decision was made on the merits, I'm confident we would be continued here in Colorado. We have everything from the research side, the university side, NASA presence, military presence, commercial presence. So we have all the ingredients to really move forward with the national leading aerospace economy here in Colorado.
Great. Dan, you have time for another question or two?
Absolutely. As part of that campaign, we talked about making Colorado the place to be for what comes next. What can aerospace and defense do in order to contribute to that slogan?
I would say making sure we partner with our institutions of higher education to grow our own talent here in Colorado. I think that's one of the areas we compete. Not only do we grow terrific talent, but we're a place that people want to move from across the country and across the world to come to Colorado to enjoy our world-class recreation opportunities, our storied quality of life. And of course, to continue to make sure we have the right policies in place at the state and the business sector, and that we have we're a great place to do business in aerospace and other sectors as well.
Yeah, thank you, Governor.
Great, thanks, Danny. Next, I want to bring into the conversation Roberta Robinette, President of AT&T. Roberta.
Hi, and thank you, Governor, very much. Your administration has worked closely with industry representatives as well as other stakeholders to further deploy broadband infrastructure and increase access to the internet regardless of where Coloradans live. You recently created the Broadband Advisory Board within the Office of Information and Technology with a focus on collaboration and coordination of broadband efforts in Colorado. The advisory board will focus their efforts on policies and programs encouraging infrastructure deployment in the unserved high-cost areas of the state and incentivizing public-private partnerships for future infrastructure investments. Would you please describe to us how your administration envisions a public-private partnership working in those high-cost areas?
So, well, first of all, our budget includes $120 million in shovel-ready investments to bring broadband access to 20 to 30,000 more Colorado households and small businesses. You know, if we've learned anything over the last year, it's that a reliable, fast internet connection is literally the difference between success or failure, accessing healthcare or not, successful learning in an online classroom or not, being able to work remotely or not. And building on the 20 million we provided for support for broadband to students and families, we're also providing continued support for expanding rural broadband access with $5 million set-asides each year for the next 4 years for middle mile infrastructure. So we always look to new and emerging technologies, but the key thing is we have to make sure that no part of Colorado is on the wrong side of the digital divide. In a Colorado for all, we need to make sure that we're all interconnected.
Roberta, do you have a follow-up?
I do. And I guess I want to just focus a little bit more and maybe be more specific in my question about the public-private partnership. I wanted to just hear more about what would the regulatory structure look like? I know a lot of times when it comes to infrastructure deployment, some of our hiccups come in the form of municipalities or local governments not having a streamlined process. So would your administration be looking at streamlining maybe some of the application and the permitting processes? And also maybe who would own that infrastructure? And then also, I know a lot of times folks focus on fiber being directly driven to the home. And I'm just wondering, would your administration be open to technology neutral solutions as well?
Yeah, of course. We just look at cost and benefits. So we would love other solutions that are less costly, of course, and can provide, you know, high speed access. It might not have to be the same speed as cable, but at least higher speed than what people might have now, especially on the uplink. And of course, we want to work to minimize impediments and paperwork and going across multiple jurisdictions. We want to make sure that there's no impediment to the timely delivery of services. So we'd love your suggestions, Roberta, on that, especially around technology agnostic opportunities to provide a greater return for our dollar on connectivity.
Great. Thank you, Governor.
Great. Thank you. And our last panelist today is Monica with JP Morgan Chase. Excited to have Monica on board. And JP Morgan Chase, of course, has been a real driver of the Business Roundtable nationally. So welcome, Monica, to the conversation.
Thank you, Debbie, and thank you, Governor, for taking some of our questions. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You talked during State of the State about fundamentally reimagining the future of Colorado. And I think what a lot of business leaders are thinking about right now is also fundamentally reimagining the future of work. What does work look like? What does it look like for our employees, for our clients, for the people that we're trying to serve? And then the role that we play in what I would call our civic centers. I think a lot of us here have footprints downtown, but it's not just the downtown and the metro communities. We touch communities across the entire state. And I think we've been very collaborative. I think Colorado has been very different than a lot of states that way, but I think that we probably have work to do because we're focused in our own lanes in trying to serve our own communities and helping our employees and our clients. What can we do to collaborate with government, with each other, big business, small business, to help reimagine the future of work? How broadband is a big piece of that, how we're using infrastructure, how transportation policy will be impacted by this, how we're using downtown space. I'm just curious if you have ideas around innovation on how we partner together with government and with each other instead of we're each creating our own plans in our own lanes.
Well, and the state is no exception as a large employer of about 31,000 people that had less than 1% telecommuting pre-pandemic and was as high as 70%, is still in the 60 to 70% range. We fully expect post-pandemic will be in the 20 to 30% remote work range, which means that we are going to be reducing our footprint by over 1 million square feet. And that saves us overhead. It's kind of the same calculations that many private sector companies are doing. You can have too much of a good thing. I think most of us feel there's too much remote work and not enough socialization right now. But that new normal is good for employee retention, morale, productivity. where a lot of folks are coming in, 2-3 days a week. Others work remotely, come in every other week, whatever it is. Great opportunity to reduce traffic, reduce lost productivity, and it's good for employee morale, retention. But what does that mean? We need to think creatively about our downtown areas. We're very excited about converting the commercial into residential. We know we have the opposite market dynamic in residential. So anything we can do to reduce costs, facilitate zoning changes. We're looking to make internal changes for more childcare on site at commercial facilities, making it easier, removing barriers so that there can be on-site daycare for workers. A lot of opportunities like that. And we'd love to partner with you. And I think the best way is to say, okay, here's what we want to do. And there's this state reg or that state law that gets in the way. How do we change it so that we can more rapidly adapt to the post-pandemic world? And we need those ideas. We need to hear them from you and your constituents and others to be able to facilitate that to occur.
Monica, you want to give a final question?
Sure, I'll ask one other question. It's shifting gears, but it's just around the topic of access to capital, which is something I think about a lot as a financial services professional. And I'm just curious of your thoughts and your observations around the financial system ecosystem here in Colorado and access to capital, not just from the big banks, which I represent, but all the way to the angel investors and the CDFIs and venture capital, private equity. Are we doing a good job of attracting that capital for those professionals to come here, live here, and seed our entrepreneurial class on the go forward?
We could do better. I think we have, and we have some good angel funding networks and on the professionally managed venture capital side, growth capital, not a lot, but we're also on the map for both coasts, but we could absolutely use more homegrown funds. And obviously they're not, it doesn't mean they're going to deploy all their capital in Colorado, but if they're here, they're more likely to deploy their capital in Colorado than in California or Massachusetts or New York funds. So it's putting ourselves on the map for national capital, of course, absolutely driving more early stage capital here. With regard to, later stage capital, our ecosystem of banks, state and federally chartered credit unions, I think is a strong one with good access across the state, in particular sector expertise in a number of different areas. And at that level, you're also dealing with national capital markets more than you are state markets per se. But there's always room for improvement. We know that we want to be a state where somebody can not only launch their idea and turn it into reality as, today's great garage entrepreneur is tomorrow's great 1,000-person company. And it takes capital partners along the way to make that happen.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank everyone. And Governor, I've got a couple short closing remarks, but want to give you, I know you've got to go to another meeting, want to give you a chance to deliver any other additional remarks you'd like to our group, and always appreciate your time and collaboration.
Thank you. I think one of the biggest opportunities for the business sector this year is going to be a transportation funding solution. And if we can't solve it, it just looks very bleak for Colorado over the next 5 or 10 years. And we really care about the long-term business climate, as well as our long-term quality of life. I mean, and it's sort of built into the current way we fund transportation is there's more EVs and more fuel efficiency, less and less funding without the commensurate reduction in vehicles miles traveled. And with the population increase, probably more vehicle miles traveled with less money for repair and maintenance and extra lanes and growth. So I think there's a historic opportunity to do that. It's not too late. Would have been nice to do 2-3 years ago, but it's not too late now. I think we can get our arms around this, solve it, and that'll be a big win for Colorado over the next decade, coupled with the historic one-time investments, which those are just a Band-Aid, right? Those are, what we can do this year, one-time stimulus, terrific. But that's not the systemic fix that we need for the next decade. And with your help and the business community's help, we'll get it done. Thank you all for your help.
Great. Thank you, Governor Polis. Hopefully we'll see you in person next year at State of the State. That's a very optimistic hope. And I want to thank Civico for the continued partnership as we have these events every year together, and also to our event sponsors. And mostly I want to also thank our private sector executives who are willing to take the time today to come and ask the follow-up questions for these important economic and business priorities that'll affect all of us in the business community going forward. So, and I know the governor had to pop off to get to his next call, but one quick thought comes to mind as we conclude is here's what we know for sure. And then this brings it back to maybe Monica's point. In this time of economic recovery, coming together to have conversations like this and to collaborate as the business community, as academia, as the community organizations that we work with and with government, collaboration is needed now more than ever. And we welcome your collaboration with Colorado Business Roundtable, whether it's our Road to Recovery initiative, which, Monica, again, to your point, brings people together from all those different sectors to talk about recovery and work on ways we can make sure Colorado's future is bright economically. Or whether it's our Faces of Business campaign, and I think the friends and colleagues who've texted me during the show to give feedback already on that campaign that I think will hopefully be a positive way to bring us all together and understand that businesses really are about people at the end of the day. Or other opportunities to collaborate, we do welcome your involvement. You can go to our website, cobrt.com, for more information. And thank you again, everybody, for your time today. And this concludes our event. And we hope to see you in person next year at the State of the State event next January. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.